The future, a world where the quest for truth has ended.
Do you believe in the supernatural, Mr. Vandarius?
I'm not enough surprise.
The Shader will bring hell to Earth for thousands of years. Shock Division, kill them all!
Spirit Blade, a full cast audio drama. Download the Legacy Edition of Spirit Blade for free at spiritblade.com.
All right, buckle up. This car has a spoiler. Just got out of Bloodshot, starring Vin Diesel. I don't know what they're gonna do with what they'll do with a sequel to this movie, because at the very end, Wiggins, his tech buddy, who's gonna be presumably the guy in the chair going forward if they make more Bloodshot movies, said that he upgraded him so that he doesn't need to have his nanites recharged anymore. And that was the one limitation which we barely felt in the whole movie, and now that limitation has been stripped away. I mean, what I imagine what they would do is replace it with some other limitation that just wasn't spelled out at the end of this movie, like, well, now they have to recharge themselves or something like that, because he felt way too unlimited this whole movie. It just seemed like he was never stoppable, now, we were aware as audience members, I suppose, that his nanites did have limitations, because we saw people looking at screens with readouts that said, oh, his nanites are depleting, he has limitations, he might be reaching those limits soon. But he never was really aware, seemingly, of those limitations, and he certainly never seemed to be struggling against them. Now, don't get me wrong, I think he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, this character, as far as the concept in this movie, for my tastes anyway, because when a character is capable of healing their wounds, one of the things that I think they often fall back upon that I just really don't like for that kind of character, like a Wolverine type character, is to take away that power at some point. It worked for me in Logan because he still had his regeneration powers. They were just slowing down, and so we knew he would ultimately be able to revive himself and push through, but he was really having to push himself in that movie. He was really feeling pain and fatigue like he never had before. Compared to the Wolverine movie where they just took that power away entirely, I didn't like that. Logan really was the sweet spot. I think that's one of the best things you can do to provide a limitation for the character. That, or you've got to provide him with a limitation that's emotional in some way, where if he does not succeed, there will be some great emotional harm, some horrible thing that character will have to deal with, the loss of someone they love, or some other eventuality. I think those are options for a character that can regenerate or that is effectively immortal. But they just didn't have options in this. They didn't execute on options in this movie to help me feel his limitations, feel his struggle. I needed the character himself to have an awareness and to experience his own limitations. And even in the end, when his nanites finally got depleted to 0, he didn't seem bothered by it. I mean, he was just content to just blow himself up with the bad guy and just let that be the end of himself. There didn't seem to be any kind of stress or emotion in that decision. And I'm not even sure that I understood his resolve. I understood his sense of vengeance when he thought that his wife had been killed. But I don't know. We don't know enough about who he was, really, before he became Bloodshot, to understand what drives him and to find it sensible. He just seems like a driven superhero, For example, if someone else, like me, or any number of other people were in that situation, I think their biggest concern would be finding out maybe who they really are, what happened to them, how they can become free of this bad guy, rather than necessarily just killing him, you know, whatever the cost, even if it's his own life, you know. It was just kind of I just didn't connect with this movie and with the stakes. And the most interesting thing to me was the way that they were manipulating him. I thought that was really interesting. And in some ways, I think it would have been interesting to keep him stuck in that zone. I don't know exactly how they would. Maybe he would gain some level of awareness. Maybe, you know, he would gain awareness, but then at the very end of the movie, even though he defeats, you know, the bad guy or whatever, he loses awareness of that again. I don't know. I just like that status quo of him being manipulated. And I think that for a franchise, that could be a really interesting premise, a really interesting status quo. What's he going to do now in a sequel? I imagine they want to make more of these movies. What in the world is he going to do in a sequel? What is going to drive him, you know? His past is a blank slate. So his values are kind of a blank slate. The only values really that he expressed is a desire to kind of like chart his own path and make his own choices, you know? Well, we all want to do that, you know? And now he can. So what are they going to do in a sequel? It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. I guess I'll save the rest of my thoughts for my review. As far as spoilery stuff, I mean, Guy Pearce, you know, is the villain, which we kind of recognize that probably 45 minutes in, 30 to 45 minutes in, it becomes clear, oh, he's not the helpful scientist who brought this guy back to life. He's the scientist who's manipulating this guy and using him like a possession, you know. And I guess I've seen him as the villain too many times now, you know, in Prometheus, in Iron Man 3. I've just seen him in enough stuff as the villain that I kind of wanted something different, you know. Yeah. So disappointing. I'll save the rest of my thoughts for the review.
christiangeekcentral.com